All right, we are live.
Hello.
Zach, you're in charge.
I'm in charge. I'm the tech support guy here today.
All right.
Well, yeah, welcome
everybody. It's a good day in immigration world on there. So I know most of you are probably tuned in today because it was the you had scheduled to hear from the Joseph and Hall folks, but we had some breaking news this morning after our breaking news from last night about our lawsuit. So we're going to talk to you over the next hour about what our lawsuit is about from last night, Kinsley versus Blinken, and what today's announcement from the State Department means, both with respect to that case and with respect to our other cases, and as well as from people that are not in the litigation, what this is all about. So I'll stop there, and I don't know who wants to kind of just sum up what happened this morning, and then we can kind of relate it back to Kinsley versus Blinken.
Well, this morning, of course, the Department of State issued with no notice to anybody. You know, there's a lot of rumors that go around about what state's going to do or they're not going to do. This literally, for some people, not us, came as a grand surprise that they're now considering fiancés to be, you know, priority cases. They're considering family-based immigration to be priority cases when they spent the last year and change deprioritizing all of those people. So obviously a 180 degree on this.
Well, hold on a second. The day after we filed the Milligan case, they made an announcement that said K-1s were a priority. So that's not a new tactic for the State Department.
Yeah, except they really weren't prioritizing them, were they? I mean,
it's one thing to I mean, we've seen this before. There was an important part. The prioritization part, I think, is the part that I don't really trust a whole lot. It's the NIE part that I think is the critical part of the announcement.
Correct. That the NIE basically, what it seems to say is, look, you don't need an NIE. You can just come.
What's an NIE for those who may not be familiar?
Visa, right? You can get a visa, Lily.
I have a feeling this audience knows what an NIE is.
I'm just making sure.
You can get the visa, but this again there's a lot of qualifying language if you read it further. Of course, this is based on local conditions, and of course, it's based on prioritization, blah, 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 blah. So, you know, while people will go, oh my goodness, it's all done, I can get my visa now. The reality is, in the vast majority of the consulates, this will be meaningless. In its practical effect. That is the immediate thing. The other course thing, as we've talked about before we got on board, is this was a Department of State announcement. It wasn't a Customs and Border Protection announcement. You know, the guys that decide whether you can enter the United States. And we have nothing from them. I know Ayla has already reached out to them. We have nothing from CBP about what.
That's because we sued the State Department, not CBP. If we would have added them in the complaint, we would have gotten their announcement too.
Yeah, but maybe that's what the case is. But here's what I think this is about. Department of State is desperate to maintain what they see as their right to not issue visas under a 212F entry ban proclamation. They would not be fighting so hard for the last year if that was not ingrained in their DNA. And this is, I think they see this as their way out of a lawsuit when it's not. But again, it's an act of desperation. It's not an act of generosity. In this context is how I see this. It certainly doesn't change the nature of any of the lawsuits that we have filed or will be filing shortly as it pertains to any number of visa categories. Yeah. That's my take on what this actually means today. Lily must have a take. Come on, Lily, you got a take on that.
So I think we should back up and just explain exactly what the State Department said this morning. So they're still, exactly as you say, they're still maintaining their position that if a country is subject to a travel ban, that means the State Department can still refuse to issue visas there. And that's what our travel ban case and several of our other cases are challenging. But they are saying blanket NIEs for certain categories of applicants that are subject to the ban, but then now getting NIEs. So that's K-1 fiancés, all immigrant visas. So that should mean family-based, employment-based, humanitarian, NDV, immigrant visas, and some J's. I'm not super well versed in J's, so somebody can educate us on sort of which J's are included.
It's basically the J groups that have been in the exemptions for the J group that was in the NIV exemptions. They've extended out to the travel ban exemption. So it's modestly useful for some of those folks, but not for our plaintiffs. So for example, in in our case where we have camp counselors and summer work travelers, none of them got a break from the announcement that came this morning. So they definitely
nannies. You can get your nanny, Greg. Don't worry. You can get your nanny.
Only if I'm an essential worker.
Oh, that's true. It's a nanny for essential workers who likely cannot afford a nanny, by the way. So
that's right. So they're not helped that much. I think what's kind of interesting also is this is sort of, there's an interplay between this announcement and one that came 2 days ago, and how on the immigrant, particularly on the fiancés, there's only one category of fiancé visas, and I think that group is fairly clear. But on the immigrant visas, there is this new prioritization that they're talking about as far as immigrant visas. So even if they're willing to say that we're capable of giving you a visa now because you can get an NIE, they're still coming up with this system of ranking people as far, in terms of who gets appointments and who doesn't. And I was talking with with one of our plaintiffs this morning about whether they are impacted because it's a parent of a U.S. citizen. And we had to go back, we looked and saw that immediate relatives on this memo from Monday are now, prioritized. So hopefully that means that the person's going to go. But they didn't, for example, explain, is it all immediate relatives? Because we know the Trump administration didn't consider parents to be worth anything. I think that's one little piece of good news here, is that they didn't, that they just said immediate relatives and they didn't have any qualifiers in that. So that might mean that the Biden administration is finally undoing the Trump policies of discriminating against parents of U.S. citizens and considering them somehow lesser immediate relatives than other categories. Because all along, for these, for the immigrant visa ban and for the travel bans, immediate relatives who were spouses of U.S. citizens or minor children of U.S. citizens, none of them were ever impacted by the bans themselves. Just parents of U.S. citizens, which coincidentally was a category that the Trump administration said that they wanted to kill in 2017 when they were trying to push through their version of immigration reform. They wanted to eliminate the parents of U.S. citizen category. So coincidentally, when they issued the immigrant visa ban and when they issued the regional travel bans, somehow parents of U.S. citizens, even though it was one ban was about job protection for Americans, that somehow that they were always banned, even though the other immediate relatives weren't. So this is the first time I think we've seen immediate relatives include parents in any kind of official announcement in the last 4 years, which is, I think is it's not going to be the headline for what just happened, but I do think it's one piece of good news out of what we just saw this morning that people probably aren't going to be talking about.
It's certainly really important to those people who want their parents here. But Greg, and really this is for Lily. Lily, of course, what they also said on Monday and today was, hey, on the posts that issue both immigrant and non-immigrant visas, you need to prioritize immigrant visas. And if you can get this non-immigrant visa, go ahead and do that. So does that mean they're going to now deprioritize student visas, visitor visas, J-1 visas, H's, L's, E visas to process immigrant visas?
It's hard to say exactly what a given consular post is going to do, but all of them are saying that they have limited resources. Some of those non-immigrant visas they could issue without interviews, especially the reissuance of visas in the same category. So maybe they can find more efficient ways to do.
Why is Jeff on the? Jeff is chiming in on Facebook, but he's not.
He's on a plane, so he probably doesn't have the bandwidth to join us by video. Thanks,
tried
Jeff.
to get it a couple of times, but you're just letting them do it. I do have a question for Zach. Zach, we've really got this interplay here between the immigrant visas, the non-immigrant visas, but the Department of State has still made no accommodation for COVID in any part of the world that we can tell.
Yeah.
Do you see this changing any of that, Zach?
No, I do not. And that's actually part of some of our other suits. I mean, it's included in the Cairo complaint that we're going to be filing today. I mean, the rates of COVID in various parts of the world are so much lower than they are in the U.S., but the consulates are like, hey, sorry, we can't even begin to schedule appointments. So no, that's not going to change. It's a weird excuse that they're making, but yeah, Greg seems to be jumping.
Yeah, no, I think Chuck and you are hitting on it though, which is the story here should be the State Department still has not announced anything close to a plan for how they are going to get back to normal on here. And normal is not ending. The end of COVID is not getting back to normal. They have 500,000 cases at least on the immigrant visa side, and God knows how many cases they have on the non-immigrant side. And we have not heard a peep from them on how they plan on dealing with that massive backlog. There are a lot of things that we can come up with. Ask immigration lawyers. We can come up with 100 ideas for them on things that they could do that both are protect national security and ensure that the system works quickly. But they haven't seen any. I mean, the only thing that we've seen is that announcement that they would allow interviews to be waived within 48 months of expiration for non-immigrants, which was good. But that was like a drop in the bucket for what they need to be doing, and we have not had anything coming from the State Department yet on what the plan is for fixing this.
The only government agency who has done nothing to accommodate for COVID. How many times have we said that? It's really unbelievable at this point. Greg, you put out that 500,000 number. Keep in mind that's months old, and that was interview-ready cases. There's likely several 100,000 others at the NVC, and who knows, a couple of million at USCIS that are probably close to being adjudicated. And keeping in mind, they've also advanced the priority dates by years in every category, which means more people will be interview ready. So, Greg, we did talk about, looking at Ciudad Juarez, which has 80,000 cases pending. But Greg, one thing I did want to ask you about that somebody has asked a question, and Zach, who's in charge of reading the questions out? Is that you? Is that Jennifer? Who's in charge of the
Zach got it.
Aaron? I'm not sure if we've established any ranking on who's
that's usually your job.
Well, let me ask the first question, Greg. It really goes to something we talked about yesterday in our own meeting, and this is the K-1 from Moscow, which will obviously have to include a mandamus function. I think we're going to get a page up relatively soon so these folks can onboard. Is that right?
Yeah, we have we're just catching our breath right now from the last group, but we have I think we have a pretty good enough interest from the Moscow folks to proceed with starting an onboarding process. So we will get that going over the weekend.
All right, here's if I can figure this out.
Yeah.
How does this impact the Brazil K-1 lawsuit?
This is a great question. Actually, I don't think it affects the K-1 lawsuit at all, because the K-1 lawsuit for Brazil will have what's called a mandamus element, which is, hey, you're taking too long. It's not just a question of you're not issuing the visas, because keep in mind, Milligan, basically they issued the visas. But the K-1 lawsuit from Brazil is beyond that. It's not just issue the visas, it's issue them now. And of course, we know that Brazil has done nothing. Again, Brazil is terrible. There's New York Times yesterday had a monumentally bad article about the super spreader country that is Brazil right now. But what they have not done is this. Can you get to Ecuador? Can you get to Argentina? Can you get to Guyana or Mexico? Can you get somewhere else and we'll send your case there? Can you get to the tent we put up outside the consulate so we can process your cases as hazmat suits? That's what the K-1 Brazil suit is about.
Yeah, you asked the Department of State spokeswoman. She said, "Of course, it's super easy.
Yeah, just check your case.
All you have to do is ask."
Yeah, we'll do it right away. Of course, that's not true. And that's what happens when you have an acting Assistant Secretary of State for Consular Affairs instead of nominating somebody. Joe, where are you, man? You're killing me. Jennifer disappeared. Where did Jennifer go?
Lost Jennifer. So here's one that I think is probably important. is it possible that CBP could deny entry to Schengen K-1s? I mean, yeah.
Greg's got an opinion on this.
Until we get something from CBP official, this is we don't know for sure yet. I would think it's unlikely because that would be a monumental, a monumental stab in the back of the State Department, which is basically telling people you can get on airplanes right now. But I think I would expect we'll probably get something from CBP in the next 24 hours on this, but we'll have to just wait and see.
I mean, until then, the announcement really can be read both ways. It can be read as like, now we're starting to grant exceptions, or it could be, everybody who has a visa is getting exceptions. So
if you could get on it, the thing is, before you show up at a CBP port of entry, you've got to convince a wildly skeptical airline employee to let you on an airplane, which they're probably not going to do based upon a printed memo from the Department of State website that is, on its best day, slightly unclear.
Yeah.
So I would wait. I would imagine by Friday, CBP will have something out. And again, I know that the American Immigration Lawyers Association is reaching out to CBP in our liaison efforts to try to get an answer from them on this.
I would think you can make your plane reservation though.
So we've got, for example, somebody in the Kinsley suit who actually has an interview tomorrow for a K-1 visa. They got lucky and got an interview scheduled. If their visa is granted, should they expect to have the annotation on it that says that they've got a national interest exemption, in which case we would expect CBP to honor that, right? I mean, shouldn't it be annotated on the visa?
If their interview is tomorrow, what I would tell them to do when they go in there is make sure you ask the officer, can you please annotate the visa in accordance with the April 8th memo that we are not subject to the bars?
Yeah.
Not subject to bars or something like that.
Zach, so Alan English just posted a question I think is a good one. How does this affect Schengen K-1s and Kinsley versus Blinken? So it's obviously for those folks, you're still in this case, and until you actually get the visa, you should still consider yourself part of it. But I think for the K-1s that are in that group, it's obviously good news because it sounds like but what has to happen is that the State Department now has to actually start getting those people appointments and getting them their visas issued. Obviously, but it is clear now that they are not going to use, at least for this group, the Schengen ban as a reason not to issue a visa. So for those folks, it's not the same thing as basically the visa, the 212F being said to not affect visa issuance at all, but it effectively means the same thing, I think, for the K-1s that are in that case, that they should hopefully start to see visa appointments being scheduled. So we'll just have to see.
And what about the folks who are stuck at the NVC? A lot of our plaintiffs, the NVC is refusing to send them to the consulate. Do we hope that the NVC will take note and start pushing those cases out?
I would think for the fiancés that we're going to start to see that probably starting today. I would imagine that we're going to start to see that happen, but it's we'll see. But I would think from a practical point of view for our K-1 plaintiffs in the Kinsley case, that this is largely, is equivalent to what a win will feel like.
So several of us have mentioned the Kinsley case. Does someone want to actually announce the Kinsley case?
Oh, yeah. Phil Kinsley, and Phil is the sponsor of the ad.
If Phil is here or not, he might be in the chat.
Hopefully Phil is here. His dad's an immediate relative who's consulate in London has callously, I don't use that word lightly, callously refused to issue his father an NIE to come in the United States. And of course, he's been waiting throughout the last year, the Trump presidency to come. He graciously agreed to be the lead plaintiff in this case. We filed this last night. Zach did a great job on this, leading the way for us with Jeff Joseph. It was pending in Washington, D.C. It challenges all of the travel bans from all over the world in every category, not just Ks, not just immediate relatives. There's Js, there's employment-based cases, non-immigrant visas, other types of family-based cases. And that was assigned to Judge Boasberg, who was the judge in the Milligan case, where he ruled that because Romeo and Juliet live forever, that you can't get visas just because there's a entry ban in place. And then what do you know? 9 hours later, the Department of State issues a memo. So that's the Kinsley versus Blinken case, which is in the District of Columbia.
Yeah, I think it's probably also that for some people we're probably still going to need to look at. Sorry, I think my mic was repeating. For some people, we're still going to probably need to look at mandamus actions separately from this, which is something that, if you recall, that case when we were onboarding for it. This is in that case we're looking for a declaratory action that basically says that visas have to be issued. But if you are long delayed, you still might want to be talking to counsel about doing a mandamus action on there, because this case is doing something a little bit different than just that. So that might be something that you still want to have a conversation with your lawyer about.
So here's a question I think that's pretty important for clarification. K-1 visa, case in Paris, are they going to start interviews now, and can we finally go to the US? So as I understand it, France is currently in a lockdown. So I guess the answer is that they can no longer use these proclamations to refuse to schedule interviews. But if there's some regional or local law that's saying, this is lockdown, that's lockdown, consulates are still subject to those laws. So if you're in a lockdown, they're still not going to schedule you for a case until that lockdown's lifted. But after that, I think that we should start seeing those interviews.
And that's a reminder, even in the Milligan case, on people that are benefiting from that. We've seen, and we're seeing it right now in Brazil, that when there's a lockdown going on in the country, that they still will not necessarily process on those, and that's probably what we'll see in Paris over the next couple of weeks as well. I'd be surprised if we don't see cancellations of interviews for some of the folks that are planning on going in there. But Chuck, I think that we're on as far as that issue goes for Paris. We've been getting and we've been getting interviews fairly steadily for
regularly.
Folks,
Paris has been interviewing the plaintiffs, at least. I don't think we've got a lot of plaintiffs left in Paris that have not been interviewed. There might be a couple, but not a lot. But again, Paris is one of those places where they make no accommodations. And COVID is bad there. I mean, some people have been saying, Greg, I hear the president's going to lift the Schengen bans in May. And I'm thinking, not if he's still on this planet. Because this problem is not going to fix itself in Europe in the next 4 weeks. So again, this is where you can do a couple things. One, you email the consulate. Hey, I don't have a ban now. Please schedule me ASAP. I've been pending since March 2020, and bombard them with emails. Squeaky wheel concept of immigration law. The other thing I think you do is, if you have the capacity, can you go to Albania or pick a country in Eastern Europe that's not problematic, and see if they'll take your case? Because again, the acting assistant secretary of state for consular affairs said you can change your case wherever you can go, but you got to get the accepting consulate's agreement. So, I mean, that's where I would go.
Right. And the good news now is that you have 35 new countries that you could potentially be doing that in, if you can find them to accept you, because I don't know if Albania is in the Schengen area, but, it would have been potentially a problem to go to, a neighbor country, because you would have just basically had the same issue there. So at least that is.
Greg, one of the, you may have not noticed this, who was absent from today's announcement as far as visa processing exemptions from the bans. And that are immigrant investors. People who invest $1 million in the United States and create jobs are still subject, even though they're not subject to these country bans. That's particularly true for China, where we have another lawsuit pending, Fang versus Blinken. And they are wondering, well, what about us? What are we, chopped liver? So it should be fun to go in front of that judge and say, I don't know why, Judge. You should ask them. I got nothing.
Well, and we just need to deal with this 212F issue and the visa ban issue. It has to be dealt with because it's been clearly been abused, not just by Trump, but by this administration. And we need to finally put that to rest, that you cannot use 212F in this way. That was what Congress, that's Congress's power, and you can't just grab it because you're the president.
Yep.
So we're getting a lot of questions from folks who are members of the Kinsley lawsuit, who are plaintiffs in the Kinsley suit, and they're saying, okay, so after this ban, is there going to be any priority for us, or excuse me, after this new announcement about the application of the ban, are we going to get any priority? What's the benefit to us from being part of this suit?
Well, that's a great question. I mean, the plan now, of course, is to get in front of Judge Boasberg for a status conference. Keep in mind, it was only filed last night. The government hasn't even assigned counsel to it yet. So it'll be a couple of weeks at least before we can talk to government counsel, see what their reaction to this is. But our plan is to continue to push for the Kinsley plaintiffs to get their interviews first. Obviously, by opening the gates, the floodgates, they make everybody disequal. Everybody's an equal peasant, right? Nobody can get in. So our goal here is to get our plaintiffs to get scheduled as quickly as possible. That's going to require talking to government counsel, which is going to take a couple of weeks because, again, the government has 60 days to respond to this, and then get a status conference with the judge to see where he wants to push the government on resolving this case. Because, again, there are a lot of Kinsley plaintiffs who are not benefited by this. That's how the Kinsley case was. It was just get rid of the ban kind of focus. So I think you're in good shape still. The job is still to get you an appointment as quickly as possible, and we're still your lawyers to make that happen.
We're happy to moot you guys out if the government wants to grant you your appointments and get you your visas.
Yep.
That makes their job easier. So that's certainly something we will ask for.
And are we advising those folks to do anything in particular right now, to reach out to their consulates or the NVC, or are we asking them to sit tight until we hear more guidance about how the State Department is going to deal with this situation?
I don't think there's anything wrong with being proactive with trying to get yourself an appointment and pointing out today's announcement. So I encourage that. I mean, I don't know if anybody else has any contrary opinion to that, but that seems like that would be the first thing I would do.
Squeaky wheel theory of immigration law. Send an email. Send an email.
I would also say that part of the benefit that the K-1 folks are getting out of this Kinsley lawsuit is this announcement. I think about 2 days ago, we got a different announcement about visa updates. This is how we're going to be moving forward. And in that, they say, hey, presidential proclamations are still in effect. They are still limiting visa issuance. And then, we threaten a motion in Milligan. We file this lawsuit. And then what happens? Just 12 hours later, here's an announcement saying, maybe we'll give you guys NIEs.
Here's what I think happened. Tony Blinken's at his condo in Watergate having dinner, and he gets a phone call. You can't believe it. Joseph, Siskind, and Kuck just sued us again. Oh, man, issue something and fix this. And he went back to eating his salad. That's what I think happened last night.
That's how you think it went down.
When the story,
well, I actually don't think there's. I do actually think that there was a 1-2 punch between actually this case from last night, as well as the Jeff's our message yesterday, which was not public, but we can talk about it now, to the Justice Department that we were about to file the motion to expand Milligan to be a universal order. And so I think that there was probably a phone call actually after that. So I would say that might have actually been the one of the 2 punches would be Jeff, even though that was the one that nobody knew about yesterday afternoon, and then the lawsuit last night. And I think that that they could read the writing here because, and then the assignment of the 3 punch was the assignment of Judge Boasberg.
And it's not that great. Jeff wrote them a letter saying, "Hey, we're going to sue you. We're going to ask the judge." Jeff sent them the actual motion that was ready to file, and said, "Here is what we will be filing. What is your input on this?" There's no response. We'll get back to you.
So it's about to go. This new Blinken. It's about to go to the same judge that we were asking this expanded order to. So why would this judge at all rule differently than he did in the last case, at least with respect to the K-1s? There's no reason to believe he's going to completely do a 180 and visas is legal on there. This was just a loser for the State Department, and I think that they decided to deal with it and blunt some of the negative publicity and some of the negative press that they were probably going to be getting today after our press release. Kinsley, this is a shift in the headlines.
So it'll be fun. So for Kinsley folks, bottom line is you're still plaintiffs. We've still got a cause to fight for, and we got to get your visas. That's the goal here.
Yep.
Here's a fun question. I mean, you would expect if, they were to be acting in a rational way, yes, but no.
I don't think so. I don't think so.
This is the part that kind of bothers me. This whole administration has been that science. That we're going to let the scientists drive policy, and yet they are basically letting Stephen Miller still drive policy with respect to these bans on here, which is they've kept even the structure of the bans are largely as Stephen Miller designed them. They shouldn't. I mean, they should have exemptions based on, first of all, they haven't changed the country. They haven't changed the country. They haven't taken a country off the list since it started on here. So, there's no science at all as far as what countries are on there, except maybe arguably South Africa for 5 minutes had when their strain came out. But even South Africa's numbers have gone down a lot. So there's no science at all as far as what countries are on the list. And there's no science at all as far as, why somebody would be subject to it if they've taken a vaccine. And the CDC says that now that you can't spread it, and if you wear a mask, you're pretty safe. And they're saying it's fine to travel again for Americans. We get on airplanes, we've been vaccinated, we wear a mask. There's no danger if we do that. Yet somehow the science, somehow as soon as you're crossing international borders, your immune system is compromised. It doesn't make any sense that they listen to the scientists in one respect, but when it comes to these travel bans, they're listening to Stephen Miller. So that's my rant.
That's a good rant. It's a good rant. This is what happens when you don't take enough people. I mean, keep in mind, while Biden has got all those cabinet secretaries, he is missing hundreds of undersecretaries, people that actually do the daily work that lead that stuff. They haven't been appointed. Again, there's no acting secretary, there's no Secretary of State for Consular Affairs. There's no head of immigration. There's no head of ICE. There's not that anybody would want that job. No head of CBP. I mean, nobody. It's 3 months in, Joe.
I have a theory on why he's holding back on there. I think that basically they are now realizing that as soon as they release a name, the person becomes a target, and then they start these campaigns to try and look for every tweet that they've done, all that. My guess is that they are now probably going to release names like only a few days before confirmation hearings start and get them in and out as quickly as possible through their confirmations rather than letting them hang out to dry for a long time.
Well, I guess he can just appoint people that have no public record of anything ever speaking from the womb until they're ready to serve. There is that. So, so Greg, that means he's probably not calling me to any jobs.
Yeah, if you haven't been vetted yet, you probably read that for what it is.
Yeah, definitely not. Definitely not. I'm toast.
We read the tweets.
So Zach, Jennifer, what other questions? We got time here.
Well, here's just a clarification again. I know this one keeps coming up for a lot of people. So just so we have clarification, do you need to apply for an NIE or talk to the embassy if you had your visa issued already?
This is a great question, Zach, because this again goes to, we told people earlier, hey, ask for an appointment. Well, heck, if you got your visa from, let's say, the London consulate, I would write to London and say, hey, you issued my visa on such and such a day. It says I'm subject to PP 99996. Can I travel now, or do you have to make an annotation to my visa? Thank you very much. I look forward to hearing back from you promptly.
I think the answer is no. You don't need to talk to the embassy with an asterisk. The asterisk is wait a couple of days, and I think Jeff said this in the comments, wait a couple of days and CBP will have some kind of statement. And as soon as that happens, you should just be able to buy. I think you can buy your plane ticket now and make that reservation to come in. I just would do it probably in about a week, and probably you need a week on there. And after that, I think that it'll all shake out with CBP, and you should not need to have any interaction anymore with the consulate because this is a blanket NIE. It doesn't say you're eligible. It says that you automatically have a national interest exception. So I don't think you need to contact the consulate, and I'm not sure the consulate giving you an email message is going to make any difference to CBP, which ultimately is, you know, who you need to deal with right now if you have a visa stamp. So that's what I would do. I don't know if others say that's bad advice, but that's probably, I'd say, wait a couple of days and see what CBP does.
I think it's okay to wait a day. I think CBP will have something out by Friday. Keep in mind, it's Wednesday. Whenever they put something out important, they wait till it's Thursday. So whenever they put anything out important, it's Friday after 5 p.m. This way they don't have to deal with any press questions. So look for it. That's true, right, Lily? I mean, Friday afternoon was the bane of existence for immigration lawyers in the Trump administration because you knew something bad was going to happen.
Whenever we were ready to leave work and go home to our families, it was, dare I do one last check on my email and Twitter? So what we're hoping CBP will do, right, the right thing that they should do is they should put out a very clear announcement on their website saying, if you have a valid unexpired K-1 and you are otherwise admissible,
or immigrant visa,
or immigrant visa of any kind, we will admit you. We're not going to look at the annotation because we will honor the State Department's statement that you are covered by a national interest exception. It's possible they will be less clear, or that they will have some kind of, I mean, is it possible that they will interpret it with a cutoff date? The DOS announcement does not say visas issued on or after April 8th. It just says all visas, right?
Well, and I also wonder about people with expired visas. And I think for that, you do have to contact the consulate and see what they want to do on that, because we did see—
Right, you have to have a valid visa.
Well, but we saw with respect to the DV folks, some of them were able to enter with expired visas after when the judge intervened in our other case. So I'm doubtful that they will make that accommodation, but who knows? We'll see.
Let me pop in and address a couple of questions I'm seeing in the comments. One is from Alan English. I see he says, with regard to the timeline that you guys laid out, why are we to believe that our bureaucratic government made a decision 12 hours after filing the case? Isn't it more likely it's been in the works for a while? And the answer to that is yes, it likely has been in the works, and there's a reason why. They've already been losing this issue time after time after time. And so when you describe it as the knockout blow, the 1-2 knockout punch, yes, I'm sure that after they lost in Gomez, in Milligan, in Tate, that somebody up high was saying, hey, should we do something about this? And I'm sure they had already started looking into their options.
We have 1,800 people in the Milligan case and this is going back to the same judge as the Milligan case on here. That cannot ignore that. That is
even if it was already in the works, though, the fact that just 2 days ago they put out, as a couple of us have mentioned, they put out guidance saying travel ban equals no visa issuance. Even if they were planning to do this, I think that the timing of our filing last night and
actually we told them we've been broadcasting the timing of this, as far as when we were going to be filing this lawsuit. If they could have, issued it,
they could have dropped it yesterday.
Yes.
Well, I've been tagging travel.travel.gov in every single post, so they know that we are suing them.
I mean, maybe they think we were serious.
No, well, they may have taken longer to write this. The reality is they weren't going to release this anytime soon. This forced their hand. This goes back to something I said at the beginning. They are desperate to preserve their right to deny the issuance of visas under 212F. They are desperate not to have a court ruling.
This is the third time that we've seen an announcement come within a couple of days, either right after or shortly before a deadline was coming up. We saw this with Milligan round one, that they made that announcement immediately after we filed. It was like within 24 hours that they were prioritizing K-1s. And then we saw it again in Annunziato. No, it was Acker, where we had they made an announcement on Friday that effectively meant that their Monday deadline, they got out of it. So that was a that was a hearing that was about to come on Monday that they didn't have to deal with because they had dealt with ahead of time. And now we're seeing it again in this case. These lawsuits do have and we saw it as well in the in the Department of Labor stuff that we've been working on as well. Sometimes announcements come right before or after a suit is filed. They definitely react to litigation. If you think that this is coincidental, then you haven't been around this stuff long enough.
And my point I wanted to come around to was that I think it is a cumulative effect, and I just want to thank everybody in the comments here and everybody who's stepped up throughout all the cases and been a named plaintiff. The government is doing something unlawful to hurt you, and you've said you're not going to take it. And you've stepped up to the plate to litigate these issues, and you can see the effect it's having. So good work. Congratulations. I know there's a long way to go for a lot of you. We still got to get the visas issued, but this is big for a lot of people.
Now, Zach, I owe an apology to Wendy because I called an au pair a nanny. I am sorry. I know au pairs are not nannies. It's being hyperbolic. Please accept my deepest apologies. I did not mean to do that. That's almost as controversial as saying who has the better baklava. I still don't know. I want to try them all as part of it. I think it's also important. I don't know if anybody's questioned this yet. Is the DV 2021 lottery. Now, supposedly, this says, yes, you can issue those visas. But if you look at the announcement from Monday, they're not, or even this one, they're not prioritizing them. And many consulates are saying, well, we'll get to them when we get to them. This is why litigation on that is so important for DV 2021. It's not just to force them to issue all the visas as quickly as possible, but to reserve all the unused visas. Because at this point, while they probably could issue all 55,000 in 5 months, it would be a stretch, which is why that litigation is also being dropped.
And on that,
that's coming tomorrow, right?
Yes.
Yeah, on that front, there were some questions in the comments about how this impacts the 2021 case. That is still looking to be filed tomorrow. One of the questions was whether this means that we wouldn't be challenging the Schengen ban or the 212F issue in that case. No, it does not mean that. One of the things we're asking for in that case is that they can't apply 212F as a bar on visa issuance. But we're not limiting it to the proclamations who are getting the exemption now. We're saying, period, that they can't use it. Like if Joe Biden announces a new proclamation in a month that says something else is banned, then that entry ban, we don't want them to be able to use for DV 2021 people in the future. So no, it's important that we keep that issue in the litigation, and we're going to do that.
I think this leads to a couple of questions we've been getting. So kind of to the scope of what this good news is. So for example, what does this mean for folks at Manila? It really doesn't impact you, unfortunately. This is saying that folks who are subject to the regional travel proclamations are able to get NIEs, but not folks who are in non-travel restricted countries. There's also several questions we've been getting about other types of visas, H's, E's, for example. Again,
can I add quickly for the K-1 Manila?
Of course.
Folks,
yes.
If you are a plaintiff in our upcoming case, then this doesn't affect you. But if you are not a plaintiff, if you have a K-1 in Manila that is stuck, and you might not have heard that we are onboarding, or we have mostly finished onboarding for a suit against the Manila consulate in particular. So the deadline has passed, but if there's somebody watching this who really wants to get in on it, feel free to contact me and we can add a couple of late joining plaintiffs.
The goal on that is to file at the beginning of next week.
Yeah, we're planning to file that one next.
In Brazil, and is Egypt? K-1 Egypt is
Today.
Oh, today. Okay, excellent.
Sorry to interrupt.
Oh, no, absolutely. And then, so I guess the other part of this is, for folks who aren't in these specific visa categories, what does it mean for H's? What does it mean for E's? And again, unfortunately, it's good news, but it's not good news.
Well, I don't know, actually. I think this is bad news for H's and E's and L's. Because if you read that announcement today, it says to prioritize immigrant visas over non-immigrant visas. So again, this is them literally trying to do the same with less and not finding more to do more. So I think actually this announcement is problematic for them, which actually goes to the fact that they just prepared it. Nobody thought this through. Because now the consulate who gets this, and they get their cable that says, oh, by the way, now if you do both IVs and NIVs, prioritize the IVs. Like, hey, Bob, cancel all those H interviews. We need to get immediate relatives in here. I mean, this is a nightmare. It's a nightmare.
Well, and the problem is that they issue these things to say prioritize this group or that group, but they still don't have a plan for how they're going to get more of these issued. On there, they're still operating at with 25% capacity or some ridiculously low number, and I've not heard a single peep from them saying this is the plan for catching up.
Okay, so here's, I guess, a timeline question for folks who are covered. What's the chance of getting relief in the next couple of weeks? I mean, I guess it depends on. Sorry.
Well, I mean, the camp counselors, by the way, they are in the J1 camp counselors are in the Kinsley litigation on there, but it's going to be it's going to depend to some extent. I mean, the litigation is obviously, I think, going to put some pressure on the State Department, but they're going to have to make a decision at the State Department that they are going to get that done, because these camps are, they only have like a month left to get it done, because that's when these counselors start to come over. So it's an issue. I know that the J1 organizations are working really hard on advocacy. They are, I just saw they got a senator to write a letter to the White House that basically called out this issue, and hopefully they're doing the right things to get the State Department to move on it. It could happen. I mean, we saw it happen with universities. With students to get them to their classes on time last fall, and hopefully we'll see something from the State Department for both, not just for the camp counselors, but the summer work travel folks as well, because obviously their hopes are all wiped out if they take even a couple weeks longer. So we'll see. What else you got, Zach?
Let's see what else we got. So, can we sue for dereliction of duty because they don't have a plan when they really reasonably should have had one? I mean, that would be difficult. There's just really not a cause of action to get that type of relief.
This actually goes to, Zach, when we're sitting on a conference call or a Zoom call with the judge in a status conference, and we say, Judge, the problem here is ultimately the Department of State has no plan. They don't have a plan. And so what we would ask the court is for the court to ask the government, what is your plan to comply with my order to issue these visas in a timely fashion? What is that? So you don't get damages from them screwing up your life. Unfortunately, that's not how the government works. But you can basically get a judge to make them produce some evidence that they're doing something here. That's the only way I could see to kind of force their hand on this. I mean, this actually goes to one of the questions people keep asking us in the DV 2020 litigation, is how is Department of State going to allocate the reserved visas? And the answer is, I don't know, because
Jeff, by the way, the person Jeff that you just asked is he's with the J1 organizations, and and actually he was involved with the letter that we were just talking about, which he says has had zero response. But and that very well may be the case, or it's the case that you've gotten zero response, but it's potentially still having an effect that you're not aware of, which sometimes we find with immigration advocacy, that we don't think anything's happening, but it actually does matter. I do think that letter probably was still important, even if you think it's being ignored.
Right. Here's a question about kind of the difference between Milligan and Kinsley. Why, would a Milligan plaintiff have priority over a Kinsley plaintiff, potentially? And I think this goes to that mandamus claim that we have in Milligan, but that is absent from Kinsley. Kinsley was really focused on the travel proclamations in particular, whereas Milligan does have that mandamus component where we're saying, Judge, these cases have been unreasonably delayed, move these cases along. So hard to say with certainty, I'd say, but where we have the mandamus component for Milligan, you should or could have higher priority.
Yeah, I mean, and we had this discussion as far as, a lot of people are confused with why we didn't have mandamus in Kinsley, and that's because of the diversity of the plaintiffs. It wasn't just one category. We had a lot of different visa categories, different kinds of processes, and that just makes for a difficult mandamus claim. But we did seem to, and also we wanted speed. That was one of the goals with to have a quick response from the government, and we're not there yet as far as the visa ban, but we obviously have had some quick reaction the way we just did it.
Hey, Zach, scroll down to the comment at 250. It's the third one from the bottom, maybe now the fourth one from the bottom, by Liam Beebe. I might want to put that up. There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah. Greg
Thanks,
is
Liam.
Bike Man. I don't know what Bike Man does, but Greg is Bike Man.
Just got off my bike to get to this thing on time.
That's right. That's right. Thank you, Liam. You're very kind. We sure appreciate that. It's just a lot of fun to be able to help people. It's the last 4 years for immigration lawyers have been soul sucking. I mean, you have almost all of you started your cases under the prior administration, and you saw the effect on your individual cases. We'll multiply that by thousands of cases that we see. It was soul sucking. And while the Biden administration has certainly not been a joyous reprieve from that event, and it's continued many of the policies, helping people on an everyday basis is what we love doing. Otherwise, we wouldn't be immigration lawyers. So on behalf of all of us, thank you. We love doing this. We love helping folks.
I'm going to highlight another comment that I love. This is Sven Olinsky, who's always has.
Sven.
Hey, Sven.
Yeah, he's got the best comments.
We all know Sven.
He says, considering I voted for this government, I should get a tax credit for the fee I had to pay for the Kinsley suit. I love it. Contact your accountant. Propose that.
I'm sure it was a business expense of some kind. I'm sure it was. But, Sven is all there. So this has been, there's lots of, I think we've got a lot of the general questions answered. We all do our own Facebook Lives each week. Of course, grateful to Joseph and Hall for inviting us, Greg and I, into their living room today to talk a little bit. Jeff and Aaron have an amazing firm with great people. Again, we help people. We don't just sue the government. We actually all help people on an individual basis get their work done. Greg does a Facebook. Oh, you do? Is it Facebook Live, Greg, on Tuesdays?
Yeah, it's been nice. He also is. Really, are you doing it regularly or just sort of ad hoc?
I have my own Facebook page where I do sort of ad hoc lives about especially humanitarian and deportation and crimmigration issues over on my individual page, and then sometimes I join you for the Monday or Tuesday night lives for litigation and of course immigration news.
We do the Monday night impact litigation YouTube live where we invite all of our folks on with us. My firm does a week, I think every week at 2 o'clock. We do every day. We do a Facebook Live, but I do mine Wednesdays at 2 o'clock, and we do these random ad hoc Friday ones as well. If something else pops up at 5 o'clock on a Friday, we'll certainly hop on to let people know what's going on. Lily, I thought for sure you'd be on TikTok. I'm
not that young.
I'm not that young. You guys on TikTok?
I quoted about TikTok in Mother Jones.
I was quoted in Mother Jones this week criticizing some attorneys on TikTok who are out there making very misleading claims. Some of them are on there, doing, education and having fun and being creative. And then there are folks who are on there making very misleading. And I think
It's like everything else. Verify, verify, verify anything you hear on the internet. I will have to tell you all this as fellow immigration lawyers. A client of mine, been a client of mine for years, stuck in the immigration court cycle. He sent me an email that says, I just got this email that people from my country can now have a special visa. It was on USCIS letterhead, signed by the director, and the website that you go to is americanvisa.us. And I said, brother, that's fake. That's fake. So be careful out there. There's so much fraud on this. People taking advantage of people in desperate situations. Just be really careful out there.
All you who's saying I should get on TikTok, someone email me and show me how to use TikTok. I'm not that cool.
I think you'd be famous. I think you'd be famous.
I don't have a pink suit to dance around and throw work permits, so.
That's what, there's an immigration lawyer doing that?
There are several. No knocking the pink suit. That's awesome. If I had the confidence to rock one, I certainly would. But
I'll be honest with you. I did download TikTok. It doesn't work on an iPad, FYI, very well. And I can't figure out how to find anything. I just get this slew of people doing dance moves. I get nothing. I got nothing.
Yeah.
Clubhouse, however, I understand. But TikTok, I don't get. So.
All right. Anyways, we're about at the top of the hour, guys. Any other parting thoughts from anybody?
Be careful out there and stay tuned to our channels, and we'll keep you updated on things you should be doing to take advantage of this stuff.
And send us your photos when you come to the U.S., when you get your visas, when you come in and get married. We'd love to see those. That never gets old.
Yep.
Absolutely. Well, great seeing everybody. Nice Facebook Live here. Sorry, I was the one in charge of the tech support here. Tried my best.
We're all still here.
I'm sure your boss has been watching the whole time, judging you. So we'll see how it goes on Monday.
Yeah, I'm about to get some angry emails here from Aaron and Jeff. But anyways, have a great rest of your day, guys.
Take it easy.
Yeah, stay tuned.
Thank you all.
Good job. Oh, we're still live.
We're still live.
Hey, Zach left. He didn't turn it off.
Jennifer, are you in charge?
Jennifer's gone now.
Yeah, we'll see you guys later. Greg and I will be gone now.
I will leave.